Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Carrie and Dani. So, Carrie, you're looking nice and summery at the moment.
Oh yes, we're coming up on spring. It's not as warm as normal around here. It's only been in about the 60s. Normally it's in the 70s or 80s this time of year. So that's Fahrenheit for all you down under folks.
Uh,
But I'm sure it's getting chilly down there, isn't it? Down in New Zealand.
Add us a bit, got out the fur, well, fake fur. So, I think the cold's just frozen my brain a little. So, what's on the top of your thoughts today?
Well, this weekend I was visiting some family and I haven't been in an Adventist church in a while. Usually when I visit other people. It's not my local church, and so I went with my family member and just sitting and listening. And it's a beautiful old church, and I looked over. I'm like, oh yeah, the American flag. And then I just started thinking, and I think I sent you a text, Danny. I'm like, there's an American flag in here. Do you guys do like the New Zealand flag, or in other countries they have flags in churches? And so I started Googling when I got home just to see, and it's seems like it's very much a uniquely American thing to have um American flag or the national flag in church. Is that anything that you see
I
in
don't
other
remember it
countries that you
ever.
visited?
I don't remember it ever. So, when you mentioned it, you did send me a message, and it was sort of like in one ear and out the other. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It didn't really sink in. So no, I don't have any recollection of seeing a flag in church. Pathfinder flags, and I think when we did I think we had a New Zealand national flag, and when I was in Australia earlier, they would also often carry an Australian flag. So if the Pathfinder flag was up the front, I remember the country flag also being there quite often
Hmm.
on the other side, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
Um, but no, I don't recall seeing flags in churches.
Well, and I think I
Um,
mean, that's more of, I think, a uniquely American cultural phenomenon. And I was just, kind of research. It wasn't anything I've really thought about much because I'm so used to it. Even other
mhm.
denominations you go in, and it's typically the churches that are more the formal churchy church, with the pews and things. And I visited a Methodist church that's just around the corner from us a few weeks ago, and I couldn't remember if the flag was there. So before just an hour or so ago, I logged into their Facebook and looked, and sure enough, there's the American flag on the left as you're sitting in the audience, and then the Christian flag on the right. And Danny, you had said you weren't familiar with the Christian flag. So those that haven't seen one, it's similar to the American flag in essence, except where there's red and white stripes, it's just white. And then in the corner, it's a blue square with a red cross in it. And so that's the Christian flags. But part of American culture, it's not uncommon to have the Pledge of Allegiance potentially in a church service if it's part of Pathfinder Sabbath, the Pathfinder Pledge and Law. Yep.
Yep, one of
Um,
those ones.
the American flag though is just kind of everywhere. Like it's not uncommon to drive through a neighborhood and every third or fourth, maybe fifth house will have an American flag attached to the front of their house, just as part of it, just as part of their decor. Fourth of July, Memorial Day, some other holidays, you're more likely to see even more flags. And from the history of it, just for those of you who aren't don't live in the United States, what I could figure out is it started in times of turmoil for countries, as far as like World War One or two, when the Lutheran Church came out of Germany, and so a lot of the some of the German Lutheran churches would actually still have services in German. And so during the war times, the local townspeople would get really mad about that. Like, where is your loyalty? Are you an American or are you a German? And so I think, from what I understand, that is when the flags started to be flown in churches more was to show the loyalty of the German Lutherans to the US more and I think we've just gotten used to it. It's part of it. But I saw a few discussions, not just in Adventism, but other
Yeah.
denominations as to whether that was appropriate anymore. And it's definitely food for thought, something that I hadn't really thought of. So anything strike you, Dani, as all of that from an outsider's perspective? Because of course you live down in New Zealand and Australia and down there, and it's different.
Yeah. When you were talking, I was just trying to think of the last time I saw a flag. Um, we had Anzac Day recently, so I did see a flag. Uh, do you know what Anzac Day is?
I've heard of it.
Our
I don't.
sense for the Straits it's to celebrate the joint Australian and New Zealand Army Corps from the World Wars, the big ones. Um, and then, oh my goodness, probably 10 or 11 months ago, there was a car accident and someone passed away. And so on my drive to town, which is about an hour, it's considerable, there's, it's odd, I was going to say a settlement, but there's not. There's an area that has a name, but there's probably only like 3 or 4 houses there. And there's a little wee old war memorial of some sort. There must have been more things in the area. And there was a flag on that at half mast
Hmm.
because a young person in the area had died and had a car accident.
Hmm.
So I remember seeing that and thinking about it. But otherwise, I don't recall seeing a flag anywhere except maybe on the internet. Saw a
Yeah.
couple at the winter, watched the Winter Olympics, saw a couple in that on telly, but not
Uh,
actually in real life, no.
yeah, I mean it's you may have seen in the media where people will drive around with their pickup trucks or their utes as you call them with a flag stuck in the truck bed and there's
Mm.
an American flag just billowing behind their truck. It's a decent sized flag and they'll be driving around especially around election day, 4th of July all the time and it's not like it's just for a parade. I mean, I just saw one, was it when I was down in Tennessee? Might have been. I don't know. But I just saw one within the last week, a truck driving around with the flag. And I whenever I see that, I'm like, America. Like to me, it's just it
I
don't
was
do
about
that
to
unless you're in a
ask you,
parade.
yeah. Um, when you go into church and you sit there and you see the American flag up the front, what does it do for you personally?
It's kind of mixed because for me growing up, we were always taught, with end time prophecy, that at some point the US is going to turn the wrong way and come and get us, like at some point and part of me
Yep.
wonders and people who are listening can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm wondering if the American flag is almost like an overcorrection of being like, yeah, we believe at some point the United States government is going to come after us, but we still love the government, so we're going to put the flag up. And then I'm like, but we believe very strongly as Adventists, I grew up believing very strongly in the separation of church and state. I'm like, why is there a flag in the sanctuary then? And that's one
That's a
thing
good.
that, you know, didn't necessarily make sense to me. I just didn't see it for like Pathfinder Sabbath and all of
Mm.
that stuff. But when I was sitting there looking at it this last weekend, I'm like, I don't know. I'm mixed on it because I'm proud to be an
Yeah.
American, less proud in recent years
Um,
than I have been, but you know, so to me it's just one of those mixed things. I don't know where there's a neat bow tie on it, but I did find an article. Let me pull this article up if I
while
can find it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So while you're pulling it up, I do actually have a question for you.
Hmm.
Something I'd never thought about till you said it just then. So I also grew up being taught that the whole end time prophecy thing.
Hmm.
and about the Sunday law, and that, all the Christians were going to come get you. And of course, we were taught the same as you
Hmm.
that it was all going to start in America.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it wasn't until you said that just then. I was thinking, I remember when I went to America, my first trip to the States, I was there about 6 months, was oh, a good 25 years ago now, 30, maybe more. And I remember going to church camp up in SoCal,
Hmm.
California, and going into the youth tent stuff there and looking around and thinking, wow, I've been taught my whole life that the church in America's going to be the beginning of everything bad. Okay. The church in America, everything bad. And I'm looking around church camp and up there, and it's anyway, people listening, it's SoCal's what, about 40 minutes out of San Francisco, is it, on the edges? Trying to think. It's out of San Francisco. But it collects Adventists from all over there. It was the biggest camp I've ever been to in my life. It was massive. I think they said there was about 45,000 people there for the weekends. And I remember looking around thinking, wow, this is where the end time is going to start here in America. This is like the big bad stuff. And I was just flabbergasted because I was the only person I could see, I think, for the whole day that was wearing any makeup or jewelry. And
If you
all
go
the
there
music
now, that
was,
wouldn't be the case.
and the music was a couple of guys playing on their guitar. That was it. And I'm thinking, oh, oh, well, everybody's really conservative here. And even 25 years ago, I came from a church that had a full band and drums up the front. And I thought, I think all the bad stuff's going to start in New Zealand.
Maybe we
But
have it wrong. Maybe it's going to come from down under, not up here.
well, that's so. Mara, my question, I just side rabbit trail there. My question was, I know what it was like for me, the trauma of growing up being told that everyone, all the other Christians that don't believe the same as you, are going to turn on you and hunt you down and kill you in the end of times, and it's going to start bad stuff for the whole world. I know how traumatic that was and how hard it was. I never stopped to think until you just said that, Carrie. How hard was it for you to grow up thinking, I'm supposed to love this country while knowing it's going to ruin the whole world one day?
I honestly don't know if I really thought that much about it. I think maybe that was one of those cognitive dissonance kind of things, is where where I think we were taught that until the laws of the land disagree with the laws of God, you're good. But you're always to be on guard, Liberty Magazine. And do you guys down where you're at, do you have oh, do they call it Religious Liberty Sabbath once a year?
No, I've never heard of it. Maybe they do, and I just haven't heard of it. But till you said those words, I've never heard of it. So in that case, considering I've been to a lot of different Adventist churches and stuff, it can't be something that's very common.
Yeah, so it could just be a North American division deal. But once
And
a
it happens
year.
in the Adventist church.
Hmm.
It happens in the Adventist church, does it?
Hmm. So once a year, let me just see.
So I've just Googled it. According to Google, it's observed the third Sabbath in January.
Hmm.
And AI says to promote freedom of conscience and worship in New Zealand, but I don't recall ever hearing from it. And I went to the Adventist church for 50 years.
Yeah, so the last church I attended, there was the trust services director of the conference attended, and he's a trained attorney. So either him or another one of the attorneys in the church would have a sermon specifically about religious liberty. They would talk about Liberty Magazine, which is available in it might just be a US thing, but the Adventist Church publishes it and they send it to I think they send it to as many politicians' offices as they can because it's promoting religious liberty. And so for me, when there was a photo with our current administration talking about their religious liaison office or something and how they're trying to get more Christian values into government. And Ben Carson is sitting right next to the guy talking about how we're supposed to get more religion into government. And I'm going, Ben Carson, you traitor. You're an Adventist. We're supposed to keep our religion out of the government. That's like kind of the whole thing, you know? The Adventist Church has gone to bat for, I believe, in up in anyway, there was a young woman who was Muslim, and she got was she fired from from her job because she was wearing a headscarf? And the Adventist Church, she worked in a retail clothing store. I could very well have my details wrong on this, people, so don't get mad at me. But she was fired for her violating dress code because she wore the headscarf, and the Adventist Church helped her because of religious liberty get her job back, or they helped intervene with some of that. And so the Adventist Church is supposed to be fighting for religious liberty of all people.
Oh, how can
Yeah.
they do that while saying you're also going to come kill us? Well, how does that all fit together?
Cognitive dissonance, Danny.
Oh, some of that stuff that used to live inside me all at the same time that didn't agree with it, with the other beliefs, just gives me headaches now that I'm looking at it differently.
Hmm. Yeah, and when we share with friends at our current church or something to say, that what we used to believe about the end times, that since they were Sunday keepers, they were going to come and get us later. They look at us like we have three heads. It's like, what is wrong with you?
Um, so, okay, so Carrie, I didn't realize, a couple of weeks ago, someone sent me an article that I didn't bother to look at, to be honest. It's not really it's a little message group thing that I don't really keep in contact with. And they had a big article on the 17th of April in the Adventist Today with Ben Carson
Mm.
saying that he agrees that Religious Liberty Commission is obsolete. So I just did a quick Google while you were talking to me to check my facts. It appears I did find some stuff from this year from Adventist churches that here in New Zealand that had a religious liberty church service and they broadcast it online. But I don't recall it ever happening. Uh, I don't recall ever going to one.
Do
But yeah,
you
so I did find another big article in the Adventist Today on the whole Ben Carson thing that just someone sent it to me and it didn't mean anything to me. But now that you've brought the topic up, I went back and got it to have a look at it.
mhm.
Um,
Do you think being, and I had thought about this before, living in the United States, and we're supposed to be the epicenter and the start of all of this end time persecution stuff, right?
yeah.
Living outside of the United States, do you feel like it gives a little bit less urgency to it, to where you're like, once we see things go to heck in a handbasket in the US, then we know it's going to get to us afterwards? Or was that ever anything that was voiced or thought about?
Um, no, living outside the States didn't make. Oh. So how do I explain this? Mostly, it's been probably 2 years now, 2.5 years since I've actively removed my name from the membership. No, year and a half. Year and a half. It's not long, I don't think, since I took my name from membership off the membership roll. And I just stopped. I left the Facebook groups from the local Adventist churches. There were two or some Facebook groups with them. But I'm still part of a messenger group because some of the people in one of the local Adventist churches, they've got a small messenger group. I'm still part of that. I don't generally read their stuff, hence why I hadn't seen the article that I
Hmm.
just mentioned. I've stayed in contact with them because they've got kids and I've got horses. kids like to visit horses occasionally, and it's just an easy place for them. I don't mind them still popping out if they're driving out to the beach to come see the animals. And I had a cull of stuff recently. I was tidying up my craft room, and I contacted the person that runs the group and said, "Hey, I've got a box of scrapbooking supplies," and I was just wondering. And they went, "Oh, whoa, the Pathfinders haven't done their scrapbooking on it." And she said, "We'd love it." So I added some extra stuff in it.
Hmm.
Added some extra stuff in it so that they have, it's quite a poor club.
Hmm.
But have extra stuff for the kids that couldn't afford it, so as many kids as possible could do their scrapbooking on it.
Yeah, of course.
I'm still happy to support stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I'm still part of their Facebook group, their messenger.
Hmm.
It often just I do not open most of what they send me. I don't even look at it. I just click the button so the notification goes away that they've sent me anything. And it's because of what you said. It's because every time somebody in power in America sneezes, I get 5 or 6 messages and then newspaper articles and thingy articles all saying, "It's here, it's here. This is the beginning of the end of time. This happened." Everything, everything. I'm sure if there was a newspaper article that said Donald Trump had a really bad bowel movement and had diarrhea for a week, that I'd get something telling me that somehow that was a prophetic thing and that the end of time was here. And um, I mean, they had me convinced that 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 COVID was was the fulfilling of prophecy, all the laws and restrictions. And I think the laws and restrictions were unfair, and I didn't like the life. And
Hmm.
here in New Zealand, it's just ridiculous. I've got stuff from the internet. I've got stuff from that's not about COVID, but it's just to explain how things are affected down here. I've got stuff from the internet that said that in 2000, between 2012 and 2018, New Zealand had an average of 450 deaths to 550 deaths a year for the normal flu.
Hmm.
So they lock everyone down over COVID. And for the whole 2.5 to 3 years there were lockdowns, the whole period, not just the 1 year period, we had something like 125 deaths for the whole 3 year period. That was it. And some of those
I know
was
I
in
had
the
heard.
newspaper. Some of those were like, they said he had COVID, so they put him in the COVID stats, but he died from a gunshot.
Right.
So yeah. So anyway, the point about all this isn't about COVID. The point is that so I'm sorry, they had me convinced that God was going to come back before COVID even finished
Hmm. Oh
because
yeah.
every single little thing was a sign of the end of times. And it's like the talk I did about my brother and trying to get help. My mum had dementia, and my brother was caring for her at times, and that was the whole chat. I'm like, don't play Al Jazeera, don't play BBC. Mum would see kids in Gaza dying, and she'd cry, and then he'd call me because he didn't know how to stop her crying, and it was spent hours on the phone trying to sort things out. And I'd
Hmm.
say to him, "Why? Why are you watching this TV channel?" And low IQ or not, he could express that he had to watch it because if he didn't know what was happening everywhere in the world, then he wouldn't know the signs that Jesus was coming back. And he had to look out for it because he had to be ready. And we had a long chat about that in one of our other videos. Can't think what we called it now. It was Adventism and mental health or something.
Hmm.
And it was like that. It was like that. And so I've had to not watch and not listen to those things. I've had to disconnect from those groups. I've had to not have those conversations with people that believe that every time America sneezes, it's a sign that the world's getting a cold or a flu and God will be back in
Hmm.
3 months. And
Imagine living here.
oh, I
Everybody's
just,
freaked out all the time.
it's bad enough from here. Just the constant stress and the constant the hyper vigilance and the hyper alertness and the always looking out for it was just exhausting.
I
Even
think
at the
I
I'm in
got,
the butt
yeah.
end of the world. You so from my house in a direct line, okay? In a
Uh-huh.
direct line from where I currently live, in a direct line, there's about 2 kilometers till you get to the harbour. So there's
Hmm.
water. And then you've got the big harbor, and then you've got a little sandbar of land, and then there's nothing. There's nothing till you hit Antarctica. So
Mm.
basically, that's it. We're not far from, the butt end of the world. And it's still that bad here. So I cannot imagine what it's like where you live.
It's
But I do know that I've had to
yeah.
disconnect from it because how are you supposed to have any sort of a relationship or even consider? How are you even supposed to consider having a relationship with God if you're in a state of constant terror about who he is and what he's about to do? How are
Hmm.
you supposed to have any sort of a relationship or think, oh, maybe I want to know this person when you're constantly terrified that he's coming back and it's going to be really awful?
Well, and I
If
think
my sweetheart goes to town, I'm like, is he going to be home soon? Is he going to be home soon? Never had that feeling about God. No,
yeah.
not growing up in the Adventist church.
No, because we didn't um it was always more the, always be ready when he's gonna come, but it wasn't like the happy, better make sure your house is completely in order and all nice and tidy. I like to think God is a friend that will come and visit even if my house is a mess, which is good because it kind of always is. Like and I think I kind of had to, and especially the last several years in Adventism, it got to where I wouldn't go to any of the prophecy stuff. I'd heard it before. It was all the same things. And it was kind of I was getting this nagging thought, what if we're wrong? What if we're so focused on these signs that aren't going to come? And the reality is, it could be the end for any of us at any given day. We don't know. So if we're waiting until to get our lives in order, or to be the person that God wants us to be or will help us be, if we're waiting for the signs of the Sunday law and all of that stuff, but then you just never know what's going to happen to you personally or to your families or anything like that. So instead of saying let's wait for all these, it's never voiced, wait until you see the signs before you shape up. But you should always live your life, you know, to the best of your ability with the Lord all the time, instead of being scared all the time. Does it? But then how I said that, maybe you have to be scared all the time because it could happen all the time.
Hey, we did a whole video called Where Did the Doom Go? About
Right.
feelings of fear and what happened when we left.
Yeah. So I don't really have those feelings of fear anymore, because I know I'm saved. I know the Lord loves me and that is what it is. And I don't feel this need for perfection because I there's no way I'm gonna be perfect anyway. So this whole thing with Adventism and patriotism and the flags and all of that stuff to me was just, it didn't always make sense that we had this flag at the front of the church all of the time. Are we going to Does that distract from God by having it right there? Does it make us as Americans looking at that and saying, "Ooh, we're not only are we Adventists, but we're American Adventists." So we've even got a better line straight to the top, and where is our loyalty? When you have the flag right there at the front of the church, is that, and from what I was looking at different things, there's arguments as to whether or not you should have a cross in the sanctuary, but a flag, so is it a cross or a flag? So, and what we're seeing with Christian nationalism right now in the United States and how that's all playing out, it is a little bit terrifying, honestly, not necessarily from an Adventism end time prophecy, but from a just how our society is here in the US is just going to where people who are Christians and or part of the MAGA America movement if you're not doing Christianity the same way that they're doing Christianity, then you're not doing it right. If that makes sense. Probably doesn't. But if you're American, you probably understand where I'm coming from, and if you're not, you hopefully understand as well. Because it's almost to the point where I'm like, I'm not a Christian, I'm a Christ follower, because I don't want people to lump me in with the current administration. So
I don't know. I mean,
yeah. I don't know if
I
there's a
don't know.
nice, neat way to tie the bow on this one, Dani, but um
I didn't even know that it was like I said, I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't know people got excited about it.
yeah, lucky you.
I'm just sitting here thinking about it, thinking, yeah, okay, interesting. I
Yeah.
do remember attending a church that got its first wooden cross put up the front when I lived in Australia. That was a big deal. Upset a lot of people.
Yeah, I bet it did. I mean, some people get very upset if you put the wrong color carpet in the sanctuary. So there's that,
Mm.
so
Yeah, okay.
yeah, I think we've only got a few minutes left. So I think probably we could wrap it up. From my perspective, living in the United States and having the flags up in church, I have mixed emotions about it, especially right now with what's happening in our politics and in our government. It can be a distraction from what really matters. Um, I honestly don't know if the church, I have not paid attention if the church I'm currently attending has a flag up.
Oh, good.
But
I was about to ask you that.
it does, well, and it's a very contemporary church, and so the stage is usually dark. It's got the lights, it's got the all the other stuff. So I will pay attention next time I'm there if there's flags or where they're at. Um, but I think that it's important to not get distracted from the mission. Make sure that we're not making an idol of for us in the US, making an idol of anything that's not making an idol of anything. Make sure that your beliefs are firmly rooted in the teachings of Jesus and not firmly rooted in the ideas of Christian nationalism and superiority that I see prevalent right now and in a lot of the rhetoric that's coming from the MAGA movement, which is very concerning. Um, I'm thankful that you don't have to deal with all that in New Zealand. That's awesome. Yay. Sorry about your gas prices. Um, but
Yeah.
anyway, I think we'll go ahead and sign off for now. I don't have a nice, neat, tidy bow. If you guys have any comments about that, the flags in church, crosses at the front of church, any opinions, any stories about that you'd love to share, because to me, it's something that um, kind of was just stuck in my head that I thought would make an interesting conversation. So I hope that everybody maybe learned a little something or maybe was entertained by us this time. So please like and subscribe, share your stories, and we will see you next time. Have a great evening. That's it.